Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the very best card designs across all four sports in 1993. And by all four sports, I should say that right off the bat, it's actually the top three sports because hockey didn't quite hit the marks that the other sets did. Now, hockey is difficult to really make work, and they hadn't quite gotten into the groove of it. So we didn't see anything show up, but a big part of it was how much competition was going on in basketball, football, and even in baseball that prompted these really amazing card designs. So there just wasn't a place for hockey yet to show up in this list, and it is very infrequent for hockey to be one of the top sets design wise, which is too bad. But I mean, what we were seeing in football and basketball, and to a lesser extent in baseball, really was amazing. Again, because of the competition that was going on, trying to capture audiences and get packs sold. So for this top list, I do have two honorable mentions, but that's because I talked myself down from a much longer list of cards that I wanted to talk about. Because there are a few cards that it's difficult for me to do this list without mentioning, even though I've already mentioned them in the specific sport lists. Here I really wanted to, but I just had to tell myself, nope, I need to lead these, I need to let these sit, and I need to just focus on talking about the top sets. So we do have 7 here to talk about total. 2 of them are not quite top 5 material. The other ones very much are. And the first one I want to talk about is Skybox Basketball. Now, with Skybox, they had gone away from the full background cover so that every card still had, or now had the action shot behind the player, which Skybox understood was just better in basketball, which is funny because over in football, they had actually moved fully into covering the background and they were doing a pretty good job with it. 94, they'd nail it. But 93, they were still working with trying to keep that full background behind the player, whereas over in basketball, they'd gone away from it, but not entirely. That white banner that is hung down from the rafters of the card really is what makes this card work. Because if you do a full bleed card, you got to have something about the card that's distinctive so that everybody remembers what your card looks like, and they can picture it in their mind, they can picture it in, or they can pick it out in a display case. That's what you want, and Skybox absolutely succeeded with that white band. Now, the white banner has, a little bit of text, it has the team logo, and then it's a big field of white, which is dumb and perfect at the same time. It does such a great job of countering the action and allowing a little bit of the car or the player to spill over on top of the banner, which gives some 3D like effect, which is kind of cool. The way all that comes together is just a brilliantly conceived concept, but also they took the idea of 1992 where they were still making cheap cards in terms of production, even though the design was a lot better. Here now with a full proper premium card stock, the card finally realizes everything that the cards before had almost achieved. In this case, it could now stand directly side by side with Upper Deck. They finally got to that point, thank goodness. But I do have to say that while the card may be the classiest, well, I shouldn't say the classiest, but the most properly designed card of them all, it's not quite as energetic as I'd like. And the other card I want to mention before I get into the top 5, which is Flair over in baseball, which is kind of redundant for 1993. This card is the most exquisite card that they made. This is a thicker card. It has a wonderfully lacquered surface, which absolutely makes the card work. Other than that, it's simplicity. Now here we also have a card where it's borderless. But the way that they pulled this off was they covered up a little bit of the background with a tight action shot of the player. And that's what makes the whole card work so well, is the fact that it has that upper picture, which kind of gets your attention, but not entirely. And so it allows the picture down below to still read as an independent focus on the card. but you've also got that gold foil with the script for the text, the logo, the way it all comes together, the card back even. This card is immaculately crafted. I love it, absolutely love it. That said, I consider this to be the number 3 card for you to collect. So whatever player you're collecting, you start off with the most iconic card, and then the most fun card, and then this is the 3rd card that completes the cards you need to get for your player in 1993. That's how I see it. This is the card which, if it isn't in your collection, it doesn't make sense. And while the image doesn't grab you, once it's in a collection, this card is going to hold your attention. It's going to own its place in your collection. It has that quality to it. I really do love the way that this card comes across. So I can't take it off the list, but at the same time, I can't put it in the top 5 because in both of these cases, the cards, they're not boring as much as they don't grab your attention. They're not distinctive. And you see at number 5 with SP that distinctive is very much the key. These cards are actually not as well crafted as what we just saw, which is ironic because Upper Deck put a ton of work into it. Now, when I say SP, I'm actually referring to football specifically. Now, the baseball cards still look great, but the football cards are better. And you can see that the first thing is they got rid of the color bands, or the color boxes up at the corner. For football, they just moved them to the back. It was a great idea, and it kind of worked, but it didn't really work. It was a good enough idea that they cleaned up for football by, again, moving it to the back so that the image stood more on its own, but there's something that I wish that they had replaced it with. I don't know what. But the other thing in football is that they added the gold foil for the stenciling. Now in baseball, the copper is not the issue. The copper and the gold come across just about as well. It's the fact that in baseball, they just printed the copper for the stenciling, as opposed to in football, you get the vibrance of the gold foil, which makes it look a lot better. But all that said, I think the baseball cards have better images. So the baseball cards have a little bit more intrigue, but at the same time, they aren't as well crafted, and so I'm not as excited about them. And that's the problem that SP has, is it's close. It's really close, but there's something that they're missing. And I wouldn't really see that until probably 1995. Not sure, but it is close. But hey, if you're kicking something off, this looks fantastic. Speaking of which, at number 4, I have Select, which is another case where they took the baseball design and they improved it for football. In the case of Select, Score radically improved it. And I am so grateful for that, because the way that the 1993 Score Select football cards come across is just fantastic. The design is actually basically the same. They just changed the color and they changed the glossy surface. They added gold foil, and they may have done better with images in football. I'm not sure, but the football cards, it's a whole nother conversation. The burgundy color is the first thing about the card, which has a whole different mood to it. It just feels classy. And then the images come through so well with the glossy surface, the gold foil that's detailing the cards. I love how it all comes together. To me, this card has more personality than the SP cards, in large part because the images are so much stronger than the SP cards tend to be. So yeah, I see this as a really good number 4 on the list. But then when we move on to number 3, you can see that there is still a lot of progress to go for more vibrant, for more energetic cards that stand out more distinctly. Because while SP and Select are nice, when you get to Upper Deck Baseball, now this is just a great card. In fact, this card, I started out with this at number 1, and I eventually had to acknowledge that, okay, it is number 3. Because it's a very simple concept, very simply crafted, but it was well crafted. The design element down at the bottom, the color fade, and then you have the gold print, not gold foil, but gold print, which I think is better than if it had been gold foil. All of that down at the bottom is really classy, really strong, but not overpowering. It's a foundation. It's basically the pedestal for the player. And then the white border around the outside can be pretty tricky, but in this case, it does a really good, clean job of focusing you in on a centered picture, but it's about the pictures. That's the thing about the 1993 Upper Deck baseball set, is that the images are just so strong. They come through beautifully. And it's, not every single card, but for the most part, these cards really have got well selected images. So you combine all that together, and these cards are just fantastic, except for the fact that they could be better, as we can shift over to basketball and see at number 2 with the Upper Deck basketball design. I mean, the color just overpowers this card. Now, are the images better? No. Are they as good? I don't think so. The design itself, it's not as simplistic and as delicate, but in the case of the basketball cards, it is a big bludgeoning of the color, and that's what I get caught up in, is every time I look at these cards, that color grabs me. The card pulls me in. The baseball card, I think I spend a little bit more time, well, I don't know, I spend about the same amount of time looking at both of these. The baseball card, there's a different kind of intrigue, whereas the basketball card, I'm just having fun with these cards. That's what I love about it, is that it does all the things that baseball does, essentially, but it's more fun. But as great as Upper Deck was succeeding in 1993, I gotta hand it to Fleer with their Ultra set for establishing the high watermark. Now, I could easily have put the football design on the list. When it's the same design across different sports, I don't like to reappear it. I like to put it in just one spot. But football would definitely have a place on this list. But basketball, for Ultra in 1993, this does something that is really difficult to do, which is that the images are too busy, but the player stands out. All of that provides us with the ability to get locked into the image, to actually be pulled into the image. That's what Ultra was pulling off in 1993. A little bit of a design element at the bottom, which does a really good job of providing you with what you need, but not the dominance on the card. It's all about the images, and for some reason, as I go through these images, they just read so well. Every time, it's like I want to stop and spend time and get to know that game, and then move on to the next game, and move on to the next game. Every one of these cards is distinctive. Even though the images are busy, every single image on the card is distinctive, and I focus on it. And I just love looking at these cards. So it's a different kind of fun from the Upper Deck basketball set, which is fun in terms of just being a kid and enjoying how awesome the cards look. In the case of Ultra, I enjoy it as a basketball fan. I mean, these cards are they get me so excited about being a basketball fan that if they had done if they'd pulled this off in soccer, I almost would consider watching a game. Almost. Because that's what this card does. When I look at this card, I remember how much I enjoy being a basketball fan, and I was never a fan of basketball. I like it, but I was never a fan of it. And yet this card just does everything that you want it to do for a fan, but also to encourage people who are not yet fans. So, to me, that's the best design for 1993. And, top 3, I could go any way with all 3 of them, but I just feel like the Ultra card is the one that is the most successful at just being an awesome card. So that's where I'll leave it. So, I want to thank you for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you haven't watched the other ranking videos, definitely check those out. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.